What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, now I hate to do this to you guys, but this is absolutely clickbait, and I'm gonna prove this to you that it's clickbait, but it's not necessarily clickbait from me. It's clickbait from the corporate press, and it's manipulation as well, but we're gonna get into that. Let's check out the headline right quick and see exactly what the hell they're talking about. ICE denies using excessive force as it broadens immigration arrests in Chicago. Now, right off the top, right, this is completely biased. Right, it's insinuating that ICE is using excessive force by saying that, oh, ICE denies, as if there's an accusation of excessive force use, right? Now, we know the other day there was a man that his life was taken by ICE agents, and they'll tell you that first. They'll say this man was shot. Oh, and he died. And then they'll tell you later on in the news article that it was because he drove his car at officers, dragging one of the officers, severely injuring this guy, and was shot and killed by another one. They'll tell you that later. But they want you to know that ICE took a man's life right off the jump to let you know that ICE is doing a very bad thing here. Let's get into this, because once again, you'll see why I call this clickbait. As a matter of fact, it was 3:30 a.m. when 10 U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers gathered in a parking lot in the Chicago suburbs for a briefing about a suspect they were hoping to arrest. They went over a description of the person, made sure their radios were on the same channel, and discussed where the closest hospital was in case something went wrong. This has all got the intimations, if you will, of it was a dark and stormy night, like they're starting some sort of fiction novel. It's fascinating, y'all, how they do this. They think they're writers, for crying out loud. They are writers, but they're writing news. That you're not writing a fiction novel, for goodness sakes. Let's plan on not being there, said one of the officers before they climbed into their vehicles and headed out. Across the city and surrounding suburbs, other teams were fanning out in support of Operation Midway Blitz. It has unleashed President Donald Trump's mass deportations agenda on a city and state that has had some of the strongest laws preventing local officials from cooperating with immigration enforcement. Yeah, those are called sanctuary laws, where they absolutely bar local and state officials from helping ICE agents. Oh, you don't get any help from us. And this is specifically why Donald Trump had to call in the National Guard to protect ICE, because they are trying to do a job. Then you have all these protesters over here trying to attack them and start a riot, and they can't do their job if they're having to defend themselves on a consistent basis, right? So they kind of work in tandem with each other, right? These state officials bar any police from stopping these protesters that are actually rioters. So what do you do about that? You can't just get browbeat over the head, attacked, have freaking bricks thrown at you because, oh, all of a sudden somebody just randomly drops off a pallet of bricks over here right next to some protesters, and nobody finds that suspicious whatsoever at all. And it's very coordinated with these protests, folks, and we all know they're funded, blah, 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 the list goes on. And, I would like to know who's funding these protests. We were talking about this the other day, right? The Soros, the Open Society Foundation, or whatever the hell it's called, they fund a lot of these protests. There's a lot of organizations out there that fund these protests. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of NGOs that fund these protests that get money from the federal government, which is fascinating. And I think, Donald Trump said he's going after a lot of these places, and I think that's a very good move, because why are we funding protesters to beat up on and attack federal law enforcement? Now they're having to call the National Guard in to protect federal law enforcement. That's absurd, folks. What kind of culture have we built where they say free expression is throwing bricks at federal ICE agents? That's bad to me. That's very bad. Why are we doing this? Like, why do they think that a protest is a riot, that a riot is freedom of expression? And they absolutely do, because we know for a fact most left-wing protests, like large-scale protests, always turn riotous. They'll say, oh, it's peaceful protest. They'll have thousands of people out here protesting, and you get, like 100 or 200 people over here start a riot, and they'll say it's mostly peaceful. Well, yeah, but still, it turned riotous. It's like, why do they do that? It's all a manipulation tactic, folks. That's what that is. Instead of saying this protest was a riot, they'll say it's a mostly peaceful protest. They won't call it a riot at all. And as a matter of fact, as we know with the statistics, none of the violence that comes from that protest will go into those statistics for left-wing political violence, because that was freedom of expression. That wasn't political violence. That's how they chalk that up, folks. And it's sickening, if you ask me. Let's keep going, though. ICE launched the operation on September 8th, drawing concern from activists and immigration communities fearful of the large-scale arrests or aggressive tactics used in other cities targeted by the Republican president. See, there they go with the manipulation, kind of nudging you in a certain direction that Donald Trump is aggressive and, oh, the citizens are just concerned. They say there has been a noticeable uptick in immigration enforcement agents, although a military deployment to Chicago has yet to materialize. The Associated Press went on a ride-along with ICE in a Chicago suburb, much of the recent focus to see how that operation is unfolding. A voice came over the radio. He got into the car. I'm not sure if that's the target. Someone matching the description of the man that ICE was searching for walked out of the house, got into a car, and drove away from the tree-lined streets. Unsure whether this was their target, the officers followed. A few minutes later, with the car approaching the freeway, the voice over the radio said, "He's got the physical description, we just can't see the face good." "Do it," said Marcos Charles, the acting head of ICE's enforcement and removal operations. Agents in multiple vehicles soon overtook the car and boxed it in. After talking to the man, they realized he was not the person being sought for, but that he was in the country illegally, so they took him into custody. So they got their man, folks. Like, what's wrong with that? They've been having a lot of this, by the way, and good. They're just finding these people out of nowhere. That's great. That's awesome. Get these people out of the dang country. Eventually, a little after dawn broke on the 1- and 2-story brick houses, the man they were looking for came out of the house and got into a car. ICE officers closed in. The man got out of the car and was arrested. I said both men were in the country illegally and had criminal records. So, good. Like, is this some sort of advertisement for ICE, by the way? Because that's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound anything like the headline that we read out, does it? Oh, ICE denies using excessive force. There was no force at all involved with that except for general authority, right? Like pull over the car. Like there was no fighting back with ICE agents. None of these things, folks. This is why it's clickbait, by the way. That's exactly why it's clickbait. Because the story they give you has no violence whatsoever. A little bit of, authority over these people to pull over the car and get out of the car. But everything was peaceful. Everything went over without a hitch. As a matter of fact, we got an extra guy that we weren't even going after. Found him. It's another one out of the country. Chalk it up to another deportation that will come to fruition, folks. These people want to lie to you. They want to smear the federal government. They want to smear Republicans. They want to smear everything that you stand for. If you think our laws should be applied equally, they want to make you think that you are on the wrong side of history and that you are the bad guy and that you are discompassionate and you are evil for thinking that way, for thinking that the United States is for Americans and anybody else that wants to come to this country and do it the right way through the proper channels. Get your green card, get your visa, become a citizen, melt into the pot. That's who this country is for. This country is not for people that want to sneak in and fly under the radar. That's not what laws are made for, folks. Once again, do we think that somebody that goes out and steals a bunch of food because their family is hungry didn't commit a crime. No, sure, we may feel bad for that person, right? But they still get arrested and they still have to pay for those crimes because there were other options. You could have went to a church. You could have went and asked somebody. You could have went and got a job. Did blah, 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 blah. There were many other options aside from going in and stealing food. But that's what they did. They chose that path. So they suffer the consequences of that action. And that's what we're seeing here, folks. Our laws must be applied equally. Otherwise, we do not live in a free society. And Democrats mostly just don't seem to care about that. They base all of their actions squarely upon their emotions and solely upon their emotions. And that's it. They don't care what the law is. They don't care what logic and reason says about what's going to happen if we allow you to break these laws that were put into place for a very good reason, right? Laws don't get made for no apparent reason whatsoever or just to be tyrannical. Laws are made because generally something happens, there's a national crisis or something like that. Legislators come together and say, okay, we got to fix this. This is a problem. We're going to put a law together that tries to prevent this, or we'll put in place consequences for somebody that commits this crime, blah, 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 whatever. And people tend to forget about these things, right? Like the old story goes, you know, a man living out in the woods somewhere builds a fence around his house. And 20 years later, his wife, unaware of the dangers outside of that fence, decides that, you know, she wants to take this fence down. So she does, and the very next day, a wolf comes and kills her while she's outside tending to her garden or whatever, however the story goes, right? That's what we're seeing with this immigration nonsense, folks. A lot of criminals, right? Sure, you can feel compassion for the people that come into this country that want to have a better life or whatever. I don't really feel that way. I don't agree with that. I don't think anybody that crosses that southern border illegally has good intentions upon this country, because they know you can't just go into another country and fly under the radar, right? But even if you feel that way, look, hey, I understand people have their opinions. Even if you feel that way, you don't know that person's intentions. You'll never know that person's intentions, and you don't know if they're a criminal or not. You don't know if this person was maybe a serial killer, something like that, that are fleeing from their country because they don't want to get caught, so they're going to go somewhere else. We don't know these people, and we must take precautions to keep ourselves safe. That's what we must do. We must do these things. If we want to be a free country, folks, we got to do these things. But I think that's all I got on this. The rest of that news article was just bloviating about activists and their crusade against ICE or whatever. It was just kind of nonsensical. But once again, like I said, clickbait, folks. That's what it is. That's what most of the news is. When you go and read into these stories, like I've been seeing a lot of stories about the Trump administration violating the Constitution in some sort of a way, and then you go and read into the damn story, and oh, it's just a unsubstantiated report from an anonymous source. And that's it. When they ask the government for comment, the government says, fake news, folks. And you can't confirm any of this, right? So there's no information on the government actually doing this. It's just this news article, and that's about it. So there's a lot of fake news out there. They do this to generate clicks. That's all they're doing. They're trying to make money. And look, I get it. But when people actually read that news and don't understand what unsubstantiation means and, you know, anonymous sources mean, especially in the context of the corporate press, they think it's true, and they're just going to go with it because of how the news article was structured. It was structured in such a way to give you the fake news first, and then way down here at the end of the article, then they're going to tell you, well, the government said otherwise, that if this is fake news, it's completely BS. When most people don't read all the way through the damn news article because they filled this damn news article up with so much bloviating nonsense that you get bored. You get tired of reading this. You're like, they're just repeating themselves now before they get to the substantiation that this is all BS. And it's always a smear. It's always some sort of attack against Republicans while trying to say that Democrats are the good guys over here. They're trying to make you think that if you come onto our side, you're on the right side of history, and that Republicans are always 100% of the time on the wrong side of history. They are evil, they are bad, and this is how we end up with Charlie Kirk. Exactly how we end up with Charlie Kirk. It's nonsense, folks, and it must come to a stop. It's got to come to a stop at some point. But I think I've rambled on for long enough. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Y'all don't forget to smash that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new around here. Share this video anywhere and everywhere that you can. And if you could, click that join button, by the way. Sign up, become a member. That's the best way to help this channel expand and grow. But you guys remember that God is always with us, and he loves each and every one of you out there. So y'all try to have a good day and stay legitical. Peace.